Okay, finally, after 100 over episodes, we're going to talk about CPF. So, yes, for all of you that are tuning in from abroad, maybe this episode does not apply to you, but for all Singaporeans, CPF makes a very big part of your life and you contribute 37% of your income into CPF every month. So, I think it calls for more discussion and I will share with you a little bit more why I took so long to come to this topic. But yeah, today I'm going to share with you how to optimize your CPF accounts. Welcome back. So, good morning, everyone. I welcome you to another day with the Financial Coconut. In our podcast, we're debunking financial myths, discovering best financial practices, and discussing financial strategies that fits our unique life. You get it. Ultimately, empowering us to create a life we love while managing our finances well. And I'm going to spend some time today to talk about how to optimize your CPF accounts. Essentially, how do you milk the most out of the system? Right? That's what everybody wants. So, a few things why I took so long to come to CPF as a topic. Firstly, I've never really had very prolonged, stable, traditional employment structure where you work for someone, they contribute CPF for you, and then you just kind of live your life and what have you, right? So, because I don't have that kind of employment structure for a long time, or forever. I've never really had a lot of money in CPF, so in that sense, I'm not very vested to think of how to optimize it. But of course, CPF is a pretty important topic for all of us here living in Singapore. So you guys keep asking, and I've decided that okay lah, let me go and scour the net and try to study this system to come to a point where I'm like, okay, I think there are some things to be said about the CPF system. And it's going to be a two-part thing. First part, I'm going to share with you about optimizing the accounts. And the other part, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about investment structure, right? CPF investment scheme. And we'll do that in another podcast. But specifically for today, we're going to talk about how to optimize your CPF accounts. And before we begin, I want you to be able to recognize that CPF is a system and you don't need to be too emotional about the system lah. In that sense, I think it's a pretty political experience for a lot of people that don't support the CPF system. There's a lot of doubt about, is it enough? Can you trust the government? Blah, blah, blah. So it's a lot about trust. And when it talks about trust of the governance, it inevitably has to go into the discussion about politics lah, right? So like what is your political affinity? Where do you stand? And with that, it adds to your bias and adds to how you view the CPF system. But I just want to put it out there that if you don't trust the CPF system, then you probably shouldn't trust the insurer providers out there. Let me give you my perspective. Okay, you need to understand a little bit of power structures. You need to understand incentive systems. So, if you look at financial providers or financial services providers, financial companies, what have you, they have a fundamental profit motive. Okay, so their main motive is profit. They want to make money. They will tell you, of course, otherwise, lah. They want to give back, blah blah blah, whatever you. Okay, those are, in my view, tethering on marketing and whatever you. But fundamentally, they want to make money. And in CPF's case, it has a different social mandate. So on top of trying to make money, which they do, they also have a social mandate where they have to take care of the people. In other words, if they mess up or if they don't do so well, it's going to directly translate into losing political power. It's going to directly translate into losing legitimacy and lose votes, and they may leave the parliament, right? So, in that sense, actually, the people managing CPF has a lot more pressure, and they do have more vested interest, in my view, more vested interest compared to your retail financial services providers. Okay, so whether you have big political affinity to the current legislation and what have you, recognize that CPF is a very important part of the social fabric here in Singapore. And in that sense, they really don't want to mess it up, lah. Right? So they're not out to cheat you, they're not out to eat you because it's gonna directly affect your votes. Right? So those things matters. And with that sense, if you ask me to trust insurance companies with a 30-year long-term endowment or whatever, of course it's a very blanket statement. I do think that you probably can trust CPF a little bit more because of incentive structures, not because they are more competent or less competent. We're not even talking about competency of private financial brokers or advisors. versus the CPF system. I'm just talking about fundamentally incentive structures, right? So that is my base case when I look at CPF. You don't need to love it, but you need to recognize that, hey, they have more interest to do well for you. But all that being said, right, it does not mean that you should love CPF blindly. The reality is CPF are the rules of the game. And if you're unhappy with the rules of the game, you can always, you know, talk to your MP, write letters, go for town halls, whatever you, to make your voices be felt. All right, and in that sense, it will have impact on the CPF structure, and it may fundamentally change. So, assuming that we are gonna keep the CPF as what it is today, I'm gonna share with you some of the things that I've read online that I feel like, yeah, people should do more of this. Why do I say I've read them online and I feel like people should do more of these? Because, like I said, I put it out in the very opening of the podcast. I am not in a traditional employment structure, so I do not have a lot of money in my CPF to be super vested to go and play around with all these things over the years. Is really because you guys keep asking, my team keeps saying, I should talk about CPF, talk about CPF. And I'm like, okay. Let me put out to you my views, my thoughts, and based on what I've read online, all these different people telling you different things. I've consolidated a list, lah, essentially. Which brings me to point number one of how to optimize your CPF accounts. Point number one is you should top up lah. Top up your MediSave account, or your medical accounts and your special accounts. All right. So sounds very cheesy. I know, I get it. Everybody is telling you to top up, and they have their views and what have you. So I'm going to share with you my thoughts. The reality is there's actually an upside as to how much you can top up. And topping up essentially means you take your cash, whatever money that you have that is not in CPF, you put it inside. Top up your medical account, top up your special account. I'm assuming most of us are young, we don't have retirement account yet. Okay, so top up these two accounts, and there's an upside, there's a maximum limit. So for medical account, your maximum limit that you can top up is 63,000. And for special account, it's 192,000 as of 2022. Of course, for more details, you can always email into CPF. I think these days they're a lot more open to discuss with you, and they have a whole support system. You can always check them out. But the idea here is when you top up, you actually get the 4% year on year recurring, right? So 4% per annum, it's growing on the money that you top up. So in that way of looking at things, right, actually you do make some money by putting money into the system. So of course the whole like special account top up, the 1M65 movement and what have you, they've done all the discussion about, you put your money inside, get 4%, blah, blah, blah. Very simple. Sounds very simple, very basic. And you want to milk that 4% per annum recurring risk-free return and what have you. And we've talked about it with different people. One of the episodes coming out will be with Endow Us, and they also talk about this, in the sense of, hey, that is a risk-free return, why don't you use it? Of course, the bigger guys in the space that's talking about it are the 1M65 guys from Lu. So whatever, those are simple ideas. There's a account there that you can put money in. You cannot do much with the money until you retire. But if you put your money inside, it gives you 4% risk free, and that is amazing, right? So why not do it, right? So in my view, I think that's an okay thing to capitalize. If you have excess cash, do it, right? Max it out. But from the medical account, I think this is a little bit underappreciated, right? So there are a lot of financial models out there, a lot of financial planners or financial companies out there that are modeling medical expenses increasing at about 6 to 8% year on year. So it's quite wild if you think about it. Of course, I believe that this growth rate will come down. The government is going to do something about it. They cannot allow this to keep going on. If not, there will be revolt and what have you. And people are finding it very hard to breathe, for sure. So with that in mind, I think if you top up your medical account at 4% year on year growth, it helps to mitigate that cost. And what is interesting is after you top up your medical account in your CPF system, so CPF got three systems, right? OA, MA, SA. So I'm assuming you already know those three. You're here to listen to how to optimize, okay? So when you top up your medical account, it gives you 4% year on year. You can use that medical account to buy all your integrated shield plans, which is what a lot of people are doing. So whether you call them enhanced shield plan, integrated shield plan, whatever adjective that they put in front, as long as you hear the shield in their name, it does suggest that it is building on the MediShield ecosystem, which is part of the CPF system also. So all of us, we get MediShield, like it or not. This is a basic insurance structure that the government has given out. But Based on what Sherry from Planner B told us, episode 58, you should check out the episode. Also, based on some other observation with Chris from Provident and what have you, different leading voices in the space, they all say that CPF is built for the mass. So, like 40th percentile, that's the kind of target group. So, I believe that most of us that are listening, we are a little bit higher than the 40th percentile, or we aim to be higher than the 40th percentile. You want to do a little bit better in your finances and what have you, right? So, I'm assuming that that's where we are, white collar, PMATs, and what have you. So, in that case, what these people, Sherry, Chris, they are saying is that because CPF is built for the 40th percentile, it is not sufficient for you. Based on the amount that you spend, based on your income, based on your need for coverage, is not enough. So, using MediSave to go and buy, so you're using your medical account that you top up, right? To go and buy all these integrated shield plans is going to help you to have a fuller coverage to fit your need. And in that sense, if you think about it, right, if you top up, that means the first thing you top up, right, because now you make money, you have extra cash sitting around. The first thing you top up is your medical account. It's going to give you 4% year on year. You can draw down that additional 4%, or you can draw down from this medical account to pay for your integrated shield plan. You can offset a lot of medical bills in that sense. And if I try to think about how early phase of life will be 25, 35, 45, actually your biggest burden in the early days are mostly two things, the housing in Singapore and your medical expenses. Right? Retirement, all these, I get it. You start earlier is better, but honestly, you may not get there. Okay, touch wood. But if you cannot sort out your medical expenses first and your housing, it's probably going to be very hard to even consider retirement. So in my view, medical account top up is the least appreciated amongst all the discussion that people are having in CPF, how to optimize. So really sit down and think about this thing of how much you can top up in your medical account and leverage on that 4% yield growing on your medical account, and then use that medical account to go and buy your shield plans and what have you to capitalize on the local public healthcare infrastructure. Rather than you straight away go and buy insurance, really look at this MediSave medical account element in your CPF. Okay, but if you want to optimize it, of course you got to put more money in. Put more money is going to help you. And like I said in the early beginning, whether or not you support the current party, they have incentive structure to do better than the private wealth management or private insurance providers. Okay, that is my view. So look at this. Also, definitely check out the episode with Sherry, episode 58 that we did. I think she talked a little bit more about what is the kind of pricing structure that is being implemented in the integrated shield plans and what have you. And she did say that actually 最不赚钱 one, it's the least profitable one, is the integrated shield plan. Alright, so in that sense, that means you are getting the most value for your buck. So definitely check that out. Which brings me to point number 2 of how to optimize your CPF accounts, and that is to transfer your OA to your SA. I know a lot of people say this, but I'm going to add this one more line. Okay, so you transfer your OA to your SA, and in my view, you only need to keep sufficient in your OA to buy your BTO. That's it. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about this afterward from our sponsor. Okay, so you've seen this everywhere, okay? I'm not the first mover in this content space of CPF. People have been talking about it, OA transfer to SA, but the question is how much, right? How much to transfer and how should you model this transfer? So simply put, your OA, your ordinary account is only paying 2.5%. The discussion is when you shift to your special account, it gives you 4%. And there's an additional 1% for the first how many tens or thousands, okay? But the idea is special account is giving you more, but it does not allow you to do as many things as ordinary account, but it gives you more lah. So in the long term, it's going to help you. So then my thoughts are, other than investing your OA, which we can talk about next episode, I want to capitalize as much as possible my SA account, right? So I want to be able to top up until I max out my SA top up so that I can get a 4% risk-free law. Eventually, it will help me in my retirement, okay? So tons of articles out there telling you why you should do this, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole movement, 1M65 and what have you, people topping out their SA like free and transferring all their OA to SA and trying all sorts of ways to try to put all the money in SA, okay? But how much to transfer? How much to keep in your OA? I think this is a little bit underdeveloped and under-discussed. And in my view, right, after solving your medical expenses, which is in point number 1, after solving your medical expenses, really the major discussion will be your housing. I think in the grand scheme of all that can be used in CPF, right, these two things are people's major concern. When it comes to retirement, I do think people are concerned, but like we've observed these days, a lot of younger people, they're very happy to invest their own money for the longer term future, for whatever reason. Of course, you can say that maybe because the CPF system is cracking, because more and more people are having alternative ways of employment. They are not in the traditional way of employment anymore. So, people will then think of how to protect themselves for retirement, right? So I think me and my friends, a lot of us, the guys that are not in traditional employment structures will invest our own money and prep, essentially. So for all of you that are in this structure, you really want to consider topping up, leveraging on the SA. Since you're Singaporean, you get 4% risk free. Why not? Don't need to explore bonds. But that's a whole different discussion for a very specific group. But if we were to bring it back to focus on this point, which is to transfer OA to SA, how much to keep in your OA? Okay, this is my view, most educated view in my perspective. Please go and learn and figure out for yourself what works. But if you think about it, one of your biggest ticket to purchase will be your BTO or your HDB if you live in Singapore. And in that sense, HDB gives you a 90% loan quantum. Okay, for private properties, or if you take from the banks, about 75% your maximum loan quantum. And you can definitely check out the episode with Bay, the one we did, from Mortgage Masters, episode 97 in this podcast, or you can check out Coconut Avenue to hear the whole property season and whatever. Yeah, we're preparing a new season, so that's great. Okay, but when I hear from him, what he tells me is 90% HDB loan, he recommends everybody to get it because it's the highest loan quantum. And for a young family that's just trying to start up, you can max out the loan, you spend the least amount of cash. Hey, why not? That's a fair perspective. So you only need to put 10% down payment, 5% in cash, and 5% from CPF. So that is your maximum. So if you think about it, BTO 500,000, you can really only use 25,000 from your CPF for the down payment. I know some people, they want to use the CPF to max out so that they can reduce their loans and what have you, because they don't want to have very high ongoing payments, etc., etc. But if you really calculate, right, hey guys, debt is not a bad thing. A lot of people have oversimplified debt. Actually, mortgage debts are extremely low risk for us individual retail investors or individuals. Not everybody need to be an investor. The CPF current loan rate is at 2.6%. It's probably one of the cheapest loan that you can get. So if it's one of the cheapest loan, then you want to loan up. In my view, okay, in my view, this is what I will do. I'm not saying you need to do this, well, I'm a bit scared, but but yes, I will take the highest loan amount that I can get for 2.6% from HDB. And at the same time, I will continue to invest my CPF, whatever I can get to transfer to my SA to get the additional 1.5 to 2%, depending on how much SA you have. Essentially, just try and make more money from the CPF, right? And take the most amount of loan I can take from HDB. And in that view, I max out the leverage on both sides. But at the same time, you need to recognize that there's this thing called cash flow in your statements, which is every month you're going to make income. Every month you're going to be making money, right? And with that cash flow, you can service your loans and you can service your mortgage repayments every month. And it's not that difficult if you really sit down and calculate. A basic loan calculator or mortgage calculator, assuming 35 years of loan tenure, hovering at 2.6% per annum interest for 450,000 because 90% loan, maximum, right? Every month you're only paying about 1.6 thousand with you and your spouse, I'm assuming. So if you think about it, about 800 over per pax, it's not very, very high. Okay, for a lot of people that are listening in, I think you have spare cash to optimize, right? And that's why you can really think about all this stuff. So the idea here is, of course, HDB loan a little bit more complicated. If whether it's your first purchase, second purchase, whatever you go to HDB, they have a loan calculator. Okay, they have actually a loan calculator, and check it out. Right, so that will give you a little bit more clarity. But the idea here as to transferring OA to SA is to max out the amount that you can leverage from SA because you get more interest there, but also at the same time allowing you that one-time payment that you don't need to spend a big bulk for one-time purchase of your flats, and also capitalizing on the maximum amount of loan that you can get with HDB. I think too many people are very afraid of taking debt and taking loans, and they will feel like, I want to put all my CPF into my HDB, at one time. And to me, that is not the smartest way, lah. If you really want to sit down and calculate the finances, it's not the best way, in my view. And of course, the third point is the classic, by now it's a classic, SA shielding when you reach 55. Because once you reach 55, your SA cash balance and your OA cash balance will be merged into RA. Okay, retirement account, well, I know a lot of A, okay, with a 4% per annum return once again. And if you think about it, your SA is already giving you 4% if you really want to work the system. You can actually use the investment structure by CPF. You pick a very low risk fund, say a short term bonds, and put all your money into SA. Okay, aside from the 40,000 that you cannot touch, the basic one, and then let CPF push more of your OA into RA. Okay, so you get a higher 4% for most of your cash that wasn't already getting 4%. And then with that, after the RA is formed, the OA is being pushed in. Of course, there's a max upside based on your minimum sum. Then you can take that 40, essentially liquidate back your whatever bond that you put in with your RA, and then it also comes back to give you 4%. So essentially, what it's trying to do is to give you more money that is rolling at 4% until you reach 65 lah. So this is a hack, right, that I think is quite prevalent already. I'm sure you've seen it again and again everywhere. The InvestQuest guys, they did write a pretty good article about CPF. So you can just go and Google CPF InvestQuest. You can read the article for more detail. But the idea is to try to milk the highest amount of interest out there. But as the discussion carries on and more people talk about it, hey, you never know, maybe CPF will close this loophole and what have you, right? So it depends on whether do they feel it's a good thing or what is it? Essentially, it's really just trying to get more money into a 4% structure that is risk-free, right? So yeah, go and read up about CPF SA shielding. Of course, there are even more complicated OA shielding after SA, but to me, it's like, 不用紧啦，不用这样夸张啦. Okay, but yeah, if you want to have a more detailed discussion, you can go and read the CPF article that the InvestQuest guys have wrote. Google search CPF InvestQuest. So I'm going to sum up today. I think we've talked about a lot of points and there are a few concepts here and there that I want to reinforce and for us to grasp. Okay, the first point is top up your medical account and your special account to the best of your abilities. Prioritize your medical account first. In my view, I think that's the most important and underappreciated one. It grows at 4% per annum with a lot of financial models out there modeling at 6% to 8% per annum increase in medical expenses. Topping up your medical account ASAP and then using that compounding to pay for your integrated shield plans. It's going to help you cover a lot of the medical expenses and reduce the first main risk in your early days of working life. Really, it's just in your early days, it's not about retirement. Medical is the biggest problem if anything were to happen to you. And after you can cross all the medical problems, then you can talk about retirement and housing and whatever. So I think this is underappreciated. People should top up their MA medical account and tap on that 4% per annum. Okay, check out the episode with Sherry from Planner B. Yeah. Number 2 is transfer your OA to SA. Right. So this is a very big thing. 1M65 they've talked about it. Essentially, they want to optimize the SA 4% and keep as little OA as possible. That to them is not really making as much of money. But in my view, I think you need to keep sufficient OA for your down payment, for your flat. And then after that, max out your loan quantum with HDB. Because so my view, right, is put the OA money into SA to get more interest and keep sufficient OA to have a HDB down payment and take the maximum loan quantum from HDB. Don't try to put more money to pay for the HDB so that you can have a lesser monthly recurring payment. If you didn't know, you have to pay accrued interest back to CPF after that. But that's a whole different discussion another time. The idea here is mortgage loans are actually very low risk and they're not very, very high. So one of the cheaper loans out there are mortgage loans. So you want to max them out and you want to leverage on SA to get the kind of interest returns. So this is my strategy. You don't have to follow. Just think about it. Okay. And number 3, of course, SA shielding when you reach 55, so you can get most bang for your buck at 4% per annum. So yes, with that, I hope you learned something useful today. See ya. Hey. I hope you learned something useful today and truly appreciate that you took time off to better your life with the Financial Coconut. Knowledge is that much more powerful and interesting when shared, debated, and discussed. Join our community Telegram group, follow us on our social, sign up for our weekly newsletter. We're doing a weekly newsletter reboot. We're going to have a lot of information within the newsletter. Everything is in the description below. And if you love us and want to help us grow, definitely share the podcast with your friends and on your socials. Also, if you have any interesting thoughts you want to share, or you know someone that we would like to hear from, reach out to us through hello@thefinancialcoconut.com. With that, have a great day ahead. Stay tuned next week, and always remember, personal finance can be chill, clear, and sustainable for all. Okay, I know, very, very big topic, and there's a lot of little pointers here and there that are being dropped. And I feel like they don't stand on their own. It's very hard to have one very nuanced discussion on each topic. So I decided to put them together. It may be a little bit dense, but I definitely think after looking at all the different CPF strategies, to me, these are some of the pockets that are underappreciated. So you have your 1M65, you have your shielding, and what have you. All these are extensively talked about. All the bloggers write about it. By my view, medical account and HDB loans and keeping sufficient money in your OA for the BTO mortgage, that's good enough, right? Everything else is an add-on. And in our early days, pretty much that's it, lah. And also recognize that CPF is an ever-changing structure. It's not like it will massively change, but some of these strategies may fade out law eventually, or interest rates may change, and things can change. And when things change, then we got to change, lah. But for all of you that are listening in and have a lot of money sitting around in CPF and not doing anything about it, maybe these are some pointers that you can really consider. And also for a lot of gig workers and freelancers and entrepreneurs out there that are listening in that do not actually have a consistent CPF top up, really consider the MA and consider topping up your SA lah. I think Singapore government give you some sort of risk-free return. Let's not waste it. Okay, capitalize at 4%. Yeah, that's all for today lah. The next week we'll talk about the CPF investment scheme. Okay, it's a little bit more complicated, and yeah, I have some pointers to share lah. Essentially, that's kind of what it is. So yeah, take care, stay healthy, see you soon, bye.